If there's one thing I've learned after years of teaching people how to grow food without emptying their wallets, it's this. The most powerful garden isn't the biggest, or the fanciest, or the one with the expensive raised beds. It's the one that consistently produces food you actually use, food that fits your lifestyle, and food that saves you real money. And today, we're diving into the 20 vegetables you should always grow, no matter the season, your space, or your experience level, because these crops simply give back more than you put in. Whether you're tending a cozy balcony garden or a full backyard, these vegetables are the backbone of a reliable, low-cost, high-yield garden. And I promise, some of what you hear today will sound familiar, but the way you understand them after this video will never be the same. Before we jump in, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever noticed that some vegetables seem to vanish from your fridge before you even get the chance to use them? You buy them over and over again, and somehow they're always the ones spoiling the fastest or costing the most. That's exactly why these 20 crops matter. These are the ones you're constantly replacing at the grocery store, the ones you always wish you had fresh, and the ones you'll use in everything from weeknight dinners to last-minute snacks. So today isn't just about gardening, it's about saving yourself from the endless cycle of buying, tossing, and rebuying vegetables that you could easily grow at home for pennies. Imagine waking up one morning, stepping outside, and grabbing fresh greens for lunch, tomatoes for pasta, herbs for flavor, and root veggies for dinner, all without spending a single extra dollar. That's the power of growing smart. And trust me, once you build a garden with these 20 vegetables, your kitchen will never be the same again. Now let's start strong with something most gardeners underestimate: leafy greens. Not just because they're healthy or trendy, but because they are productivity machines. If there was ever a plant designed to reward new gardeners instantly, it's leafy greens. But here's the part nobody tells you. They don't just save you money because they regrow. They save you money because they replace the food that spoils the fastest in the fridge. Think about it. How many times have you thrown away slimy store-bought spinach, or wilted lettuce, or kale that turned yellow before you even made the smoothie you swore you were gonna make? When you grow your own greens, they last longer, taste better, and you only harvest what you need. No more waste, no more guilt, no more buying giant plastic containers of greens that turn into mush in 3 days. When you grow them at home, every leaf has a purpose. Now let's talk about tomatoes. And listen, I already know what you're thinking. Tomatoes? Seriously? That's the most basic garden crop ever. Yes, but that's exactly the point. Tomatoes are common for a reason. They give back more than almost any vegetable you will ever grow. But the part that gardeners often miss is that not all tomatoes are created equal. Cherry tomatoes and grape varieties, those are your non-stop producers. They'll feed you all season long with barely any effort. But the bigger, slicing tomatoes, those are your savings champions. One good tomato plant can produce the equivalent of $20 to $30 worth of tomatoes every couple of weeks. And unlike grocery store tomatoes that are picked green and ripen in trucks, your homegrown tomatoes actually taste like tomatoes. But here's the secret. If you train your tomato plants vertically, prune them lightly, and give them consistent water, they'll double their production. Simple habits, massive results. And while we're still in the world of wildly productive crops, let me bring up something that so many gardeners overlook: green onions. Out of every vegetable in your kitchen, green onions are probably the easiest to grow, the fastest to regrow, and one of the best ways to cut down grocery trips. But here's the part that still surprises people. Even a tiny pot can produce green onions year-round. And if you grow them densely, they act like a cut-and-come-again crop. You snip the tops, they grow back. You slice them for eggs, stir-fries, soups, tacos, whatever you need, and they return in a matter of days. The reason I always tell people to grow green onions isn't because they're trendy or pretty, but because they're the definition of high-use, low-cost, big-impact gardening. Now, let's shift gears for a second and talk about peppers. Sweet peppers, hot peppers, bell peppers, banana peppers, even those tiny spicy ones that remind some of us of home cooking. Peppers are the undercover superheroes of the garden world. Why? Because they're expensive. Grocery store peppers are some of the priciest vegetables per unit, and half the time they're wrinkled and sad by the time you get them. But when you grow peppers yourself, not only do you get perfectly fresh fruits, but you also get way more yield than most people realize. One pepper plant can easily produce 20 to 40 peppers in a single season. And the best part is, they freeze beautifully. Just slice them, freeze them, and enjoy homegrown flavor all year long. And trust me, using your own frozen peppers in a winter stew hits differently. But while we're on the subject of crops that feel almost magical, I can't skip cucumbers. Cucumbers are the friend that won't stop texting you in the garden world. Once they start producing, they just don't stop. They climb, they spread, they take over if you let them, and they give you fruit faster than you can eat it. But here's the trick that most gardeners miss: grow them vertically. Not only will you save space, but you'll get straighter cucumbers, protect them from pests, reduce disease, and increase yield because the plant gets more airflow and light. And for those who are into pickling, one cucumber plant can fill a whole row of jars. So instead of spending money on store-bought pickles that taste like regret, you can make jars that taste like satisfaction and sunshine. Now let's talk about one of the ultimate season stretchers: carrots. Carrots aren't just nutritious, they're storage champions. Unlike many vegetables that go bad in days, carrots last for months when grown and stored properly. And here's the thing: homegrown carrots taste nothing like store-bought ones. They're sweeter, juicier, and full of flavor. And guess what? You don't need deep soil to grow them. There are short, stubby varieties perfect for containers. And if you loosen your soil, keep it moist, and thin your seedlings just a little, you'll get carrots that look like they were grown by a pro. Carrots also give you the power to grow a long-term food supply without spending a fortune. They sit quietly in the soil, waiting for you, like a little savings account of root crops. Speaking of savings, let's talk about beans. Not the dried beans you store in your pantry, though those are amazing too, but the fresh green beans that make dinners feel like home. Pole beans, bush beans, string beans, they all produce like crazy. One plant can give you 2 full months of continuous harvest. And beans have a bonus superpower most people don't know about. They fertilize your soil naturally. They pull nitrogen from the air and store it in the soil, which means your next plants grow stronger without you spending a dime on fertilizer. So beans aren't just feeding your table, they're rebuilding your garden. But we're not stopping there, because if we're talking about vegetables you should always grow, we have to include zucchini. Zucchini is practically a cheat code. If you plant 1 zucchini, you'll get tired of zucchini. If you plant 2, your neighbors will get tired of zucchini. If you plant 3, well, let's just say you're opening a zucchini business. But the real reason zucchini belongs in your garden isn't just because it's incredibly productive, it's because it's versatile. You can grill it, sauté it, bake it into breads, spiralize it into noodles, add it to stews, or even grate it and freeze it for future meals. And here's the secret: harvest zucchini when they're small, not massive. Baby zucchinis taste better, cook faster, and encourage the plant to keep producing. Now, let's transition into something every single household uses: garlic. Garlic isn't just food. Garlic is culture. Garlic is medicine. Garlic is flavor. Garlic is everything. And the best part? Garlic is one of the easiest crops to grow on the entire planet. You plant a clove, it becomes a whole bulb. Talk about return on investment. And you don't need perfect soil or big garden beds. Garlic grows in pots, raised beds, or right in the ground. Plant it once a year, forget about it, and you'll harvest enough to keep your kitchen stocked for months. But garlic has a cousin that deserves even more love: onions. Onions are the silent heroes of the kitchen. Most recipes start with them, and yet most gardeners don't grow them. Why? Because they think they're complicated. But in reality, onions are straightforward, dependable, and incredibly useful. Imagine not having to run to the grocery store for onions ever again. Imagine opening your pantry and seeing braids of onions you grew yourself, curing beautifully in the sunlight. Onions aren't just a vegetable, they're a lifestyle. Let's keep moving because we're getting into the heart of what makes a garden sustainable: potatoes. Potatoes are the comfort food of the world. Mashed potatoes, roasted potatoes, fries, hash browns, you name it. Potatoes are filling, easy to store, and extremely productive. And unlike many vegetables that need delicate handling, potatoes are rugged. Give them loose soil and sunlight and they'll do the rest. But the trick to huge potato harvests? Hilling. As the plant grows, you bury the lower stems with soil or mulch. This encourages the plant to grow more potatoes up the stem, giving you double or triple the harvest. But do you know what grows even faster than potatoes? Lettuce. Lettuce is speed. Lettuce is convenience. Lettuce is the vegetable that says, "You want salad today? Say less." Lettuce grows in almost every climate, in pots or beds, and you can harvest it in weeks. But here's the secret that even experienced gardeners forget. You don't harvest the whole head. You harvest the outer leaves and let the center keep growing. It's like having a salad tap you can turn on anytime you want. Of course, every great garden needs herbs, but let me talk about one in particular: basil. Basil is the most reliable, most loved, and most useful herb you can grow. Not only does it smell like heaven, but it grows like a champion. Pinch the tops regularly and basil becomes a small shrub that keeps giving you fresh leaves all season. And whether you're making pasta, salads, sandwiches, homemade pesto, or simply infusing oil, basil is one of those herbs that transforms a meal. And while basil brings fragrance and life to the garden, there's another plant that doesn't get nearly enough attention: parsley. Most people think parsley is just a garnish, something restaurants sprinkle on plates for decoration, but the truth is parsley is one of the most hard-working herbs you can grow. It's packed with nutrients, cold hardy, and once it gets going, it grows non-stop. Curly or flat leaf, it doesn't matter. What matters is how often you'll reach for it. Soups, stews, grilled meats, salads, sauces, parsley finds its way into dishes you didn't even realize needed it. And because parsley grows back after each harvest, a single plant can keep your kitchen supplied for months. When you grow it yourself, you suddenly understand why chefs treat parsley like gold. Now, there's a vegetable I absolutely can't skip because it's one that every budget-conscious gardener should have: spinach. Spinach is a quiet warrior. It doesn't show off, it doesn't demand attention, it simply grows fast, grows consistently, and gives you more nutrients per square foot than almost any vegetable in your garden. But what makes spinach so essential is how flexible it is. Raw, cooked, blended, sautéed, it works in every form. And here's the fun part: spinach thrives in cool weather. That means when everything else is slowing down, spinach is just getting started. With a little protection, you can harvest fresh spinach long after other crops have given up. And if you ever tasted homegrown spinach, you know it's a different species from the bitter leaves you buy in bags at the store. Fresh spinach is sweet, buttery, tender, and honestly addictive. Speaking of addictive flavors, let's talk about cilantro. Now, I know cilantro is one of those love or hate herbs, but here's the thing. Even people who think they don't like cilantro often discover that homegrown cilantro tastes completely different. It's brighter, softer, smoother in flavor, and it doesn't have the harsh aftertaste many store-bought bunches have. Cilantro is one of those herbs that bolts quickly in heat, but that's not a bad thing. When it goes to seed, you get coriander, the spice used around the world. So you're not just getting an herb, you're getting an herb and a spice in a single plant. Tell me that's not the ultimate budget win. Next up is something that carries the heart of homemade food: cabbage. Cabbage is more than just a vegetable. It's longevity, preservation, tradition. Think coleslaw, stir-fries, soups, stews, fermented dishes, wraps, you name it. Cabbage is cheap to grow, huge in yield, and full of vitamins. But here's the real secret. Cabbage stores better than almost any other vegetable. Under the right conditions, it can last months. And when you grow your own, each head feels like a treasure. You cut it open and see layers so tight and crisp they sound like breaking glass. And if you're into preserving food, one cabbage can become coleslaw, kimchi, sauerkraut, or fillings for dozens of meals. This is the kind of crop that saves a family money without sacrificing flavor. Now let's move to something that can genuinely shift the way you cook: beets. People underestimate beets because they've only ever had the canned version. But fresh beets? That's an entirely different world. Sweet, rich, earthy, colorful. They're like edible jewels pulled straight from the soil. But the part most gardeners don't realize is that beets are a two-in-one vegetable. The roots are one food, and the greens are another. Beet greens taste like a mild, tender spinach, and they're packed with even more nutrients. Every time you harvest a beet, you're actually harvesting two foods for the price of one seed. That kind of value is exactly why beets are permanently on the list of vegetables you should always grow. Of course, every garden needs something that brings stability and structure, and that's where kale comes in. Kale is the plant that refuses to quit. Heat, cold, pests, kale just survives. It's the kind of crop you plant once and harvest from for months. And because its leaves grow back after picking, you get a nearly endless supply. But here's what makes kale so special. It transforms based on the weather. During warm months, it's sturdy and bold, but after the first frost, kale becomes sweeter, gentler, and more flavorful. And for those who think they don't like kale, trust me, homegrown kale is nothing like the tough grocery store stuff. Fresh homegrown kale cooked with garlic and a little oil, that's comfort food disguised as healthy eating. Let's keep going because there's still one vegetable that I consider to be a secret weapon for small gardens: radishes. Radishes are speed incarnate. You plant them and within 3 to 4 weeks, you're eating them. They're the perfect crop for impatient gardeners or kids or anyone who wants instant results. And radishes don't need perfect soil, they don't need huge space, they don't need complicated care. They just grow. And the best part, their greens are edible too. Stir-fried radish greens with garlic taste like something you'd find at a high-end restaurant. When you grow radishes, you don't just get food, you get speed, satisfaction, and a lot of confidence. Now let's switch to a vegetable that brings so much flavor for so little effort. Scallions. Yes, we talked about green onions earlier, but scallions deserve their own spotlight. They grow fast, they regrow endlessly, and they're one of the most commonly used vegetables in everyday cooking. If you've got eggs, noodles, rice, soups, or stir-fries, scallions will belong there. And growing them means you never have to buy a bunch of limp, half-dried scallions again. Keep them in a small pot near your kitchen, and you'll always have fresh flavor ready to go. Alright, now we're getting into one of the most underrated vegetables you will ever grow. Swiss chard. If spinach and kale had a baby with superpowers, it would be Swiss chard. It's stunning, bright stems, huge leaves, vibrant colors, and it thrives in both heat and cold, making it one of the most dependable greens you can plant. But here's the part that really makes it special. Swiss chard doesn't bolt quickly like spinach. It doesn't struggle like lettuce. It just grows. Week after week, month after month. You can harvest it almost year-round, and it keeps producing like it's being paid to do so. It's the kind of vegetable that makes you feel like a gardening genius because it thrives even when you're barely paying attention. Now let's talk about something that saves you money without you even realizing it. Herbs like mint, oregano, thyme, and rosemary. These herbs are the set it and forget it squad. Plant them once, and you'll have fresh herbs for years. But here's the trick. Mint needs its own pot. Trust me, if mint goes into your garden bed, it will spread like gossip. But when managed properly, these herbs transform your meals with almost no work. Buying fresh herbs from the store is expensive and they spoil fast. Growing them at home means endless flavor at zero cost all year long. We're nearing the end, but there's one plant that belongs in every single garden. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes aren't just delicious, they're one of the highest yielding crops you can grow in small spaces. A single sweet potato slip can produce several pounds of food. And the best part? The leaves are edible too. Sweet potato vines produce tender greens that are amazing sautéed, stirred into soups, or added to pasta dishes. So once again, you're getting multiple foods from a single plant. Storage, nutrition, yield, sweet potatoes hit every category. Now let me introduce the final vegetable in this list, and honestly, it might be the most humble but most powerful. Peas. Peas are sweetness and nostalgia wrapped into a simple green pod. They grow quickly, they fix nitrogen into your soil, and they produce early in the season when very few vegetables are ready yet. Sugar snaps, snow peas, shelling peas, they're all incredibly rewarding. And the tender shoots, the vines themselves, are edible too and taste like fresh pea flavor in leaf form. They're perfect for stir-fries, salads, and sandwiches. Peas start your season strong and leave your soil better than they found it. Now, take a moment and imagine all 20 of these vegetables growing together in your space, whether that's a balcony, a small urban plot, a raised bed, or a full backyard. Picture how much money you'd save. Picture how many meals you'd build without stepping foot in a store. Picture the freshness, the confidence, the pride. This is more than gardening. This is independence. This is creativity. This is a lifestyle built on abundance instead of lack. And here's the part I want you to remember. You don't need expensive tools. You don't need fancy garden beds. You don't need perfection. You just need the right vegetables, the ones that give back more than they take. These 20 crops are the foundation of a garden that feeds you, grows with you, and stays reliable no matter the season. If you're watching this and you're feeling inspired or even a little excited, you're exactly who I make these videos for. And honestly, that excitement, that's the beginning of something big. That feeling is what grows into confidence, skill, and eventually a garden that makes you proud every time you look at it. And I have one last thing I want to say before we wrap this up. If this video helped you, inspired you, or even taught you just one thing you didn't know before this, make sure you hit that like button so YouTube knows this is the kind of content you want more of. And if you're new here, subscribe to Urban Eden Garden and join the community. We're building something special, a place where everyday people learn to grow real food without breaking the bank. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 20 vegetables you're excited to grow next. I'd love to read your plans, your ideas, and your goals. It helps me create even better videos for you. Because at the end of the day, this channel isn't just about gardening. It's about making life easier, healthier, and more affordable, one seed at a time.